So it's our Saturday night tonight and our Uposatha as well, the day that we recite our rules. A new moon, and so this marks 3 weeks that we've essentially begun the retreat and been in the retreat. So it's 3 weeks now. And Ajahn Cunda was speaking about the Buddha's refrain, the days and nights are relentlessly passing, how well are we spending our time? This is a reflection that the Buddha encourages those who are following his path to bring up from time to time, to really kind of question what it is that we're doing with our time. And how much are we devoted to being present, to waking up, to ending our own suffering. And it's an incredibly helpful reflection, because without it, then we might just, we can, as most of us are quite capable of, just distract ourselves away day after day and not really question what we're doing, especially when it has to do with what we enjoy kind of getting distracted into. That isn't always beneficial for us. And I was reflecting about these, spending 3 weeks. It's an arbitrary time, 21 days, but it's just an incredible fortune to have that time, to be here. I think the monastics have expressed many times over how fortunate we feel for the support that we receive here, especially the immediate support with the retreat crew who's here supporting us, the team of young men. I can say young men. I guess I've become kind of old. Who are here, and they're just offering an enormous amount of kindness and generosity. And so there's that's kind of in the air as well. That sort of buoys the practice a bit, because we can think of that and feel a lot of this, what's called mudita, that gladness for the goodness others receive in their generosity. And then there's so much support that the monastery receives from afar or near, whether it's just for any of these, providing these 4 requisites. And just thinking about generosity, it really just does bring that happiness to mind. So this is a time period during the winter retreat when the monastics here have put in, I can say for all of us here, there's been a lot of effort put into maintaining the monastery, helping with the guests who come here, teachings, all kinds of things that we do. And so this is quite a lovely time of year when we get to put down most of our duties and deal with a lot of dukkha. And so that's what comes up sometimes. We have a retreat, and 3 weeks into it, there can be some who are surprised at how little dukkha they're experiencing, but there are others in the more common experiences. Wow, 3 weeks, and I'm still in the ditch. I'm still kind of having quite a difficult time. And that comes from our tendencies. It's sort of like there's a very common saying that is quoted again and again. You can see it kind of in print. It says, "Whatever you think, you become." The Buddha, and that's a fun one because the Buddha didn't ever actually say that. Because if I just think that I can, I'm going to be enlightened, I don't think it's going to happen anytime too soon. Or if you just think you're going to be rich, it doesn't always work out that way, or whatever it might be. But the Buddha did say, whatever it is that we think and ponder upon, that we often think and ponder upon, that will be the inclination of our mind. So we incline towards that which we lend our minds to. And so we're encouraged through what the Buddha teaches on right effort to really learn how to bring up the wholesome, bring up goodness, kindness, states of mind that are beneficial for us, for others, and to learn how to diminish those states of mind that are the opposite, that incline us towards anger, or fear, or jealousy, mind states of greed, or just getting what I want for myself. We're really becoming aware in the Buddhist path is towards really understanding that and letting go of those unwholesome mind states. And so this very short saying around how it is that what we lend our minds to. The Buddha also uses the word papancha, our kind of continual thinking on and on and on, just forever thoughts, planning, and creating me and mine. And that really is where our mind tends to incline. And so in a retreat like this, it's kind of like we don't always feel in charge, like the record's going and we might not like the record. We just keep watching our minds, and there can be sometimes a tendency, even if we are actually gaining some sense of presence, as we're watching the breath, we're watching some part of our body, some experience we're having, we're lending perhaps a word or a mantra that we're going over. We're seeing still that these patterns keep arising. As Luang Por Sucitto calls them, programs. It's simply, press play and then stop, rewind. Press play, stop, rewind. And it can be sometimes maddening, because how is this possible that this just keeps happening? I keep having the same thought, I keep having the same ideas, the same desires, and it can really it can bring a lot of frustration. And so the Buddha's teaching around this is of course not to take it personally, to just be very aware and to have a sense, okay, this is our mind. This is how all minds really work. It's not me in particular, but each of us has our own tendencies, our own inclinations. I was thinking, as I saw one of our supporters is here now, I haven't seen in a while, and last memory I have is of her, or one of the standout memories I have of her in her car upside down, and sitting there after she crashed her car. And I think there was two of them in the car, and so luckily they were both safe, and they got out of the car and it was okay. But Ajahn Jayasaro's title of one of his books is "Crashing in the Same Car." And I can't say, I'm sorry to say I didn't actually read it, but the title really reminds me of that, just this kind of tendency to kind of keep going over and over these same patterns of our lives, these programs. And so we might often in a retreat like this, we're seeing them so clearly, and we can also be used to them, very used to them in our lives. But there still is that kind of why that can come up. That's like, why does it keep happening like this? And when am I going to stop? When am I going to get a break? And so we're often missing the whole point of it. It's like, well, it's not necessarily about stopping it or getting a break. It's about the dukkha that we create around these experiences that we have. And it shouldn't be, and I can't be like that. And it's not, I wish I was somebody else. I wish I had somebody else's mind. As most of you know, I'm quite a fairly talkative person. And I remember there was a Samanera here. His name was Jnanamedi. And over a decade ago, I think we were working together. And he didn't speak. It was amazing to me. It's like, oh, wow, it's amazing. This novice doesn't speak at all. So we were working together one time, and some of you may have heard me repeat this. I said, Jnanamedi, do you think you'd be willing to do a mind swap with me sometime? I think I'd really like to just experience that mind of yours of just no inclination to speak at all. Months. Nothing. And he had something to say, and he looked at me and he said, "No." Oh, that's too bad. I don't think it worked anyway, but anyway, it was something I thought about later on. It's like that desire for some other mind, some other person to not be me. And that's really where this sense of, the Buddha talks about this. He talks about the state of becoming, bhava tanha, this desire we have to plan and be, and me doing this and that, and somewhere else happier, all these kind of senses of what I'm doing, or what I was doing, or what I will be doing. And then there's the vibhava tanha, which is not me. I don't want to be me anymore. I want to get out of here. I want to just do anything I can to just get rid of this, rather than, as the Buddha more taught, to be released from it. And a lot of times we're going through that on a retreat like this, sort of like, I just want to become this amazing meditator and do all of these great practices and have these incredible experiences of mind. And then we get disappointed. I just hate this, and it's not working out for me. And, there must be some other way. Maybe it's just some other tradition. I'll just sleep all day. That'll help me out some way or another. And so we can get quite frustrated. It's very easy on retreats like this to fall into these different patterns. And of course, most of you know the third inclination that the Buddha talked about, which is that inclination towards sensuality. Kama tanha, it's sort of like this sense of just gratifying ourselves through our senses. So that's very normal, and we're often looking for entertainment, something that's fun and pleasant, or we get absorbed in our jobs. I'm the kitchen manager, or the office person. I take care of all these things. Or if we're not absorbed in our jobs, then we're absorbed in getting through our tasks. And we say, okay. And we might say, I'll be mindful when I'm done with my tasks. That's when I can be mindful, because I can't be mindful when I'm doing them, because I have to do them. And they have to get done. So a lot of these things come up for us on the retreat, and we just need to have really a sense of understanding of how they work, of how as I was talking about in a recent reading, it's the causes and conditions, like what has led to these states of mind, what has led to this current experience, and how do I get into these ruts, and how is it that I can really try to understand them. And that's a very helpful thing to think about, is like understanding rather than getting. Understanding how these patterns occur, how they're extricated in terms of our sense of wholesomeness. So if we're having obsessive mind states sometimes, then we bring up our own generosity. We bring up senses of goodness that we can find in there. Think about how it might be for you to experience obsession around your own generosity. sort of this kind of sense. And then I did this, and that was really nice. And you don't usually hear people say that, like, I'm so obsessed with all the good things I do, because that's not how our minds tend to incline. But in a way, that would be a positive inclination, bringing up all of those wholesome pathways that we can remind ourselves of. Because the tendency is often in the other direction. I'm no good at this, I'm a failure, I make way too many mistakes, and I shouldn't. So many more mistakes than other people. I was speaking with one of the community members, and they were talking about their experience for them, and they're sort of like talking about actual bliss and happiness, and not having a lot of difficulty staying with their particular object, not having a lot of difficulty with it at all. In fact, it's just quite pleasant, and more learning how to deal with that pleasantness, the sense of pleasantness, whether it's a settling pleasantness or sometimes unsettling, and the mind is not inclining towards distraction or thinking. So what does that do to you when you hear that? Is it mudita? Good for them. I'm so happy to hear that about another person here experiencing this bliss that can come from meditation. Or is it inspiration? That's so inspiring to hear. It really encourages me to keep going. It might be, and those are good. Those are very good. That's sort of those are wholesome pathways. But often, and I could say in my own reflection, what comes up is me and mine. Well, last time I felt like that was at this time, or my mind's such a mess. I don't have anything like that. Or I just, I can't even imagine something like that. It's just, I'm just pathetic, really. I have no possibility of even getting close to what is bliss anyway. I mean, what does it mean to just be with one's meditation object? So each of us has our programs. We have our ways of reacting towards our own comparisons, or how other people are, what they're doing, how they're behaving. We think about ourselves, we think about others. We see others, we interpret like what they're going through, what it must be like. Even just the story I just mentioned, or that kind of sense of somebody else. Even just our own positioning of ourselves as somebody who doesn't experience bliss, or who doesn't have the potential for that. It's just another sankhara. It's completely made up. It's a creation. It's a concoction of the mind. Because it's about me. And me is always a creation. It can't be real. It's not substantial. So when we focus around hearing something around somebody else, and we just more have a sense, as I was saying, like, it's not easy, but to have that sense of mudita, oh, good for them. If that's true for them, it's wonderful. Or it can be an inspiring. Oh, I hope someday I can emulate that, or may that be a possibility for me someday. May I experience so little suffering that I feel that bliss. Not as something to gain or get, but just that's what the Buddha's teachings are encouraging us. That we have a sense of what it might be like to not be impinged upon dukkha, by dukkha as much as we are. And then we get a foothold in what I was saying was our own learning. Because it's very hard to learn when we're stuck in our programs. We just keep, again, pressing play, stop, rewind, and it just keeps happening over and over again. So this is our opportunity during this retreat, is to really examine and explore our own processes, how we really operate in these particular conditions, and they are very extremely good conditions. Not sure if it can really get any better. And so it's interesting because we don't always recognize that. We can kind of, I just wish it was this way, or I didn't have to sit next to this particular monk for another year. He won't stop swallowing. I just hear him swallowing all the time. Shifting every second. It drives me nuts. And then you that person goes on retreat and you're not with them anymore, and then surprise, surprise, you're not blissed out. Something else takes up your program, the aversive program. The mind is searching for an object that it's used to finding. It's searching for its own kind of what it's used to in terms of these defilements, and so we're it's sort of like we're trying to be very much aware of that tendency, that we're looking for someone to blame. We're looking for something out there that is a cause for all of the problems in our life. And even out there is still me. It's still me in here. So it's still me out there doing something wrong. And what is also helpful to try to remind ourselves of and get a perspective on is, okay, it's been 3 weeks. And this reflection I started with, like, how well am I spending my time, is also a reflection in terms of, like, how well is this experience going? What's it really been like the last 3 weeks? Am I mired in dukkha as much as I think I am? Is it just non-stop? There was a question I heard. I was listening to a talk by Joseph Goldstein, and this fellow kind of, I think Joseph even said something like, "Oh, you look kind of desperate in the back there," and this guy was raised his hand and said, "Yeah, I'm pretty desperate. I'm just completely caught in thought all the time. I'm just thinking and thinking and thinking, and it just goes on, and it's incredibly unpleasant. And then about maybe once or twice an hour, I just all of a sudden, like, there's this one very subtle moment of recognizing that, and then I'm just back in the thought. And it's just so much dukkha. It's just constant, every hour, hour after hour. And I just think to myself, well, I guess that's just something. And Joseph looked at him and he said, yeah, that's something. And I think it was essentially a recognition that we've all been there, and we need to keep going. We need to continue on. We need to move through that. Because when I asked you about evaluating these 3 weeks, or for anybody who's not on retreat right now, just evaluating, like, well, what is it? We had these expectations about how I'm doing. And is that really accurate? Is it really true? Because our programs often, they push us into this same pattern that we keep seeing, where it's like, I am this, I am that. I'm someone who's never going to get the meditation right. I'm someone who doesn't have a concentrated mind. I'm someone who has a concentrated mind and is quite blissed out all the time. I have this capacity to just be blissful all the time. It's so pleasant, so wonderful. And then it stops, and we lose it, and something's wrong. Something's wrong. And we have to get that back, and we spend years searching for this bliss. So sometimes it's very good to have a realization that we don't always have the best perspective on our own experience, because these patterns are habits of mind. The programs just keep repeating themselves, and they're very hard to see. The Buddha rarely actually talks about like seeing the self. In fact, I remember in one sutta study I was discussing with was Ajahn at the time and a couple of monks. They were saying, well, it's actually impossible. You can't see the self. It doesn't work that way. We get a notion of it, a notion of what that process is, or the feeling, or the sense of self. We have an idea of it, but you can't see it. You can't say, there it is. And so, we're relying on mindfulness. We're relying on bringing our own mind to the fore, to our present experience. So we just keep kind of bringing that back over and over again, and that becomes the pattern of what we're learning from the Buddha's teachings. Just keep trying, keep bringing the mind back, so that you see in a very calm and reflective way how these patterns manifest. They keep coming up again and again, and then reminding ourselves, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to take this personally. I want to say that's me, that's my story, that's what I'm doing all the time, I can't stop it. But what we're doing is we're reminding ourselves it's not me. This is just karma. This is just action after action over a lifetime, over many lifetimes, and it's led to here. It's led to this right now. And when we see that clearly, then we don't have to add the me to it. I'm so fill in the blank. Awful, terrible, great, amazing. And it's not easy. Buddha never said this was easy. But how many times a day do we say those things? I'm going to go do this. I shouldn't have done that. I'm always doing this. I don't like that. And so as we're paying attention to that more and more, then we're reminding ourselves, okay, there's the I am again. It's okay, it's just very impersonal, it's just what the mind does. This is how the khandhas work, how sankhara happens, this concocting, creating. And so being stuck in these obsessive thoughts, being stuck in thinking, or the programs we have, they then start to feel less weighty. They're not personal when we start to see them from this vantage. And if they're not personal, then we don't have to take it personally. It's much less painful. And there's a liberating quality to it. Right, it's actually not me. And so rather than an annihilation of our experience, we're seeing, I don't have to run away from this sense of who and what I am, or get away from it, or I don't have to become something. It's just an understanding. It's learning about the process, how it works, and then the dukkha is released, because we're seeing that it's so much desire that's behind all of this. I have to get, or I have to get away from. And so one of the things that we're bringing into our practice during these retreats is something Ajahn Cunda spoke about earlier today as well, which was, this is during, I don't think I said during when we were all together after our rural recitation, we have an owada, which is just a talk, sort of an encouraging talk by one of the monks present, usually Lumpur, Ajahn Cunda, myself, one of the senior monks, and so Ajahn Yaniko when he's here. And so this was what he was speaking about as well, was just our tendency towards like giving into what we like and what we don't like. And this is very much in tune with how the Buddha talks about practicing Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. Because we can practice Dhamma according to our likes. So it can just be like, I like this floor. It's a really nice cork floor. I like walking on it. And therefore, because I like walking on it, then I can only walk on cork floors because they're very pleasant. And that's how I experience a blissful state of mind. And so therefore, I'm going to talk to Ajahn Yanko when he comes back and make sure that every floor in the monastery has cork on it. And the Maikuti has a cork floor, and on and on our minds can go. So that's more saying, we're following Dhamma in accord with our likes. Or when somebody eventually says, okay, I've had enough of Abhayagiri. I'm just annoyed with everybody here. And so I'm going to go somewhere else, because the other place I'm going to go to, there's no annoying people there. And so it's going to be much better. I'll be able to have a lot of bliss in my meditation, or a lot of calm. I'll just be with kind people all the time. Nobody who ever says anything to me and challenges me and has any suggestions, because I don't really want to listen to that stuff. I don't like hearing it. I don't like hearing people tell me how I should improve in one way or another. That's very painful to me. So if I just make sure I don't have to be around those kind of people, then my practice should be pretty easy. I can just figure it out myself. I don't need others telling me what to do. So we have to be very careful of, I've obviously given some examples that are exaggerated or pretty silly, but we have to be very careful, because our minds can create that. It's, I think the most famous, in silent retreats and in meditation centers, the participants will write notes. And so they'll write notes to managers. The manager of a retreat who's not on retreat, their job is to manage the retreat. And one of their jobs is to read these notes and deal with some requests that some of the retreatants say. And I think I mentioned this even, I'm sorry if I mentioned it just recently, but how one of the people said, asked the manager, I said, can you please contact, I think they were in Massachusetts, and they said, can you please contact the Boston airport, Logan International, and please let them know that there's a meditation center here, and it's in the course of some of the flights, and can they just divert the flights away from the meditation center? It's not that hard, and we won't have to hear, this droning noise of these planes above us. I don't think they got an answer to their request, nor do I think the plane stopped. But hopefully that person had an insight that doesn't really matter what it is. It's just that's our life. This is how it should be. And it's funny to hear that for the first time, if you've already heard it before. But when you hear it for the first time, wow, that's crazy. How could somebody think that? But that's what happens. We have a sense of what is right for us. It's just, it makes total sense, doesn't it? It's logical. You could talk to that person and they could logically believe that, hundreds, thousands of people should be diverted in their flight paths so that my meditation can be pleasant. I'm not having to deal with this unpleasant sound. So the importance around this is that we're not giving and we're not thinking that if I have to be uncomfortable for a little bit, that's not good for my practice. That's not helpful for me. If I have, if I have to deal with some aversive states, that's not helpful for me. Having this mind is not helpful for me. I should have another one. Or it should be better by now. Don't I deserve this? I've been practicing for 10 years and I'm not enlightened yet? That's ridiculous. So we want to kind of try to catch ourselves in the act when we're tending in those ways. I wish there was the schedule was just open like this every year, it's constantly like this. And in fact, I wish it was just like this all year round. And I wish I didn't have to do any kind of work. I had no responsibilities, just the responsibility of watching my mind. That's it. That's fair, isn't it? Isn't that what I deserve? Putting in all this effort. But you look at the reality is, well then how, you're just going to live in filth and squalor and everything's just going to fall around you, and how are you going to eat? How are you going to, how are you going to practice if you're going to do nothing? So our practice is really engaging with what is difficult. It's engaging with perception of dukkha and how we are the cause of our own dukkha. Our conditions, how we've led our minds, our not understanding, and our lack of right effort of how to encourage wholesome states and discourage unwholesome ones. That's our responsibility. But it's not in the conditions. It's not in what I like and don't like. It's not in Abhayagiri needing to be a better place, or just finding another monk who doesn't have to sit next to me who's annoying. It keeps coming back to our own examination of our experience and our responsibility towards that examination. And in that responsibility, we also want to look at, questioning our own perceptions, questioning how it is that we tend towards repeating the same patterns of telling ourselves, this is how it is. I know how it is. It can't be any other way because this is how I've always experienced myself. Until you pull the pin out of the myself. And there can be an aha moment. Oh, okay. I keep getting the me in there. So as we're moving on with 3 weeks of being here and knowing that that's an arbitrary number. That's for some people, as I've said, they might feel I'm just getting started. Others. Maybe they've already finished the retreat. And others might, might be just enjoying this time and not even aware of time passing. And each of us is just getting kind of used to this sense of our practice continuing and also having peaks and valleys. Not thinking that when we get what we want, or it's really, I finally reached this blissful state, that's it. I've done it. Or when we're, it's just dreary, or we're completely bored. We just keep coming back to also our sense of it's just like this. It can't be any other way. I don't need to make more suffering out of this. It's just how it is. And over again, we just start where we are. We can't start anywhere else. So those are some words of reflection tonight. Anything that you've found useful, please take with you and reflect upon it, use it in your practice, and anything that's been not useful or unwelcome or something that, if you didn't like it, that's something to work on as well. But I will end it there.